Hey guys, it's Derek here with On the Horizon, and today it's just me. We're going to be telling you the story of the real creation of the 22 Creedmoor. So if any of you guys have been listening to our podcast, this is going to be our new format. And we're starting it out and just me telling this particular story. Typically we'll bring on a guest and we're going to be doing a 7-minute intro, 12 minutes of meat, and then we're going to spend a little time at the end like we always do going through what's on the horizon. We're going to do that same thing today. So 22 Creedmoor, I'm sure you guys have heard about it at this point. And we don't claim that we're the first people to have ever done the 22 Creedmoor as Horizon, just that we're the people that finally were able to pioneer it and get it over the finish line to make it SAAMI approved, that you can buy loaded ammunition on the shelf at your local dealer. And so how did that process even work? So back in 2014, we were starting out as a small custom shop, and we're doing a lot of, predator competitions and just, varmint hunting. And, we were using the 22-250. And what we were getting is, great performance in 2250, nothing against the 2250, but you were getting a lot of lightweight bullets. And if you made a marginal shot, on a coyote or something coming in, you were spending a lot of time tracking. And in these competitions, you have to understand at that given time, the competition game was changing. It was time-based. So a lot of time these varmint competitions, a 2-man team, you get 24 hours. You got to come to load in, and you got to also be at load out, so that they can weigh your pot. And that's how you ultimately win these competitions. And so, in using that 2250, we were really wanting to shoot a heavier projectile so that you could get the high BCs, or the highest BCs you could get in the small caliber with a lot of velocity. And so, you can do some of those things with the 22-250, but traditionally the 22-250 was, a 12 twist barrel. And so they would not stabilize the heavy projectiles. And so you ended up having to build a custom 22-250, but then didn't have quite the case capacity that we wanted. So, fast forwarding through this you got to think about in 2014, February was when we built our first 22 Creedmoor. And at that time, the 6.5 Creedmoor had just taken off and was getting really, really hot and sort of accepted in the market as, a really good rifle for a lot of different things. And, at the time, I had a really good friend, Hazer, out of Wyoming, who was doing a lot of predator hunting at the same time. And we also had a really good friend, David Stroud, who you guys may have heard on or seen in some of our past, videos and podcasts and stuff that we've done. And he was doing a lot, with Fox Pro in terms of predator hunting. And so kind of at this time, we started testing what Hazer was doing in the 22-243, which is really awesome. I mean, you were getting 243 case capacity with a 22 caliber projectile, a lot of velocity. The only issues we were really having was feeding. I built an AR-15 platform, 22-243, and I just could never get it to function like I wanted, although it was super, super accurate. And so we started, basically wildcatting the 6.5 down to 22. So you're taking the 6.5 neck and you're necking that down to 22 caliber and then putting these heavier projectiles. And so now it's a Wildcat caliber, and we get to ultimately control, what twist rates and those kind of things we wanted. And so, kind of fast forwarding, we picked a 1 8 twist barrel, which was a fast twist 22 cal barrel at the time. A lot of people ask us, why we didn't do a 7 twist or a 7.5 or a 6.5. And you have to understand also, kind of in that time period, is when the Valkyrie and some of the newer, heavier projectiles were coming out. And so you have this weird issue where you've got to make sure the bullet is stable, but that you're not spinning the bullet too fast, that the projectile essentially comes apart, which is somewhere around 310,000 to 340,000 RPMs. And so the sweet spot for what we found was really, the 1 8 twist. Now, we've done a bunch of testing on those barrels, and we ran it from anything from, 26-inch barrels all the way down to 13-inch barrels, which is ultimately why we do so many, 18-inch barrels. So, we started doing that, first time we went out, I actually was able to harvest a double on coyotes. And then later that same year, we went down and actually harvested with my son at the time, who was really, really young. I personally took a whitetail buck in South Texas. And so we started seeing this caliber as not just a varmint cartridge, but as a, all around cartridge. And so we started hand loading internally, and that grew and grew and grew until, there was a time frame where we couldn't keep up with the actual hand loads. And so we started outsourcing some of that. We outsourced that through, Peterson Cartridge Company, and ultimately created, Texas Ammunition, where we're doing our own private label, ammunition around the 22 Creedmoor. Fast forward, because I'm running short on time here. We may go over anyway. I get to run this podcast, right? So basically, at that time, Peterson was doing a lot of good work for us, and the ammunition was really, really good. But we even outgrew, that particular relationship, and so we sent a rifle off to Hornady. Worked with Ryan over there, who you've seen on some of our videos and podcasts as well. Ryan, great guy in the engineering department, and started working, some of the 80 grain, 88 grain, and some other projectiles you haven't seen in the 22 Creed over 10 years ago. And so we've been shooting the 80 grain, ELDX and 80 grain ELDM projectiles for over 10 years, at this point. The Valkyrie came out, which kind of, kiboshed a lot of the things for the 22 Creedmoor going to SAAMI at that particular time. And then the kind of, fast forward, we continue loading it. And now we're out at we're at a Dallas Safari Club show, called that maybe 3 years ago. And met with Neil Davies. I always tell the story. It's kind of funny. You probably heard it on podcast before. We met him really at the bathroom at Dallas Safari Club show, and he hits me up and says, "Hey man, what's going on with the 22 Creedmoor?" And within about 2 weeks, we had a deal set with Hornady to where we could get the 22 Creedmoor SAAMI approved. A lot of those guys at Hornady had been shooting it and knew a lot of the benefits around it, but we had to work around the twist rate, bullet construction, and really kind of prove that the cartridge was, going to do what the cartridge needed to do without causing, ballistic problems. And so, we were able to launch that through SAAMI with Hornady. And, one of the things I wanted to clear up, a lot of people say, oh, well, Horizon, kept all that ammunition for themselves, and, it was an exclusive. And let me explain the relationship piece there. So you got to think about what had happened in the market in terms of, ammunition being put out, and who was behind and what was hot, and just that culmination. It made sense that we work with Hornady to slow release the ammunition until we could build up, production capabilities around the 22 Creedmoor. And so what we kind of did is we made sure that we launched it, and to anybody who was supporting the 22 Creedmoor rifle, we made sure that they were able to buy ammunition. And why that was super important is that you really, to make a round, not just SAAMI approved. There's all kinds of stuff we'll talk about, in a different podcast. Maybe we even get Jaden on a podcast about the science behind, what it takes to get around through SAAMI. But from a making it stay in the market, you've got to have people using the cartridge. And so we did that. Now you can find, 22 Creedmoor in hundreds of dealers across the country, some dealers internationally, and even in the biggest distribution, we even have 22 Creedmoor in shields now. So we've been able to grow that, and that is why, the 22 Creedmoor has all of a sudden started to take off. And if you're not familiar with it, why you're starting to see it everywhere. Started out selfishly. I just wanted to create or really pioneer around that I could take my grandkids to an Academy or Cabela's or a Shields, down the road, and buy a box of ammunition for a cartridge that we had helped create. And that's really the true story behind where we're at right now at the 22 Creedmoor and how it relates to Horizon and ultimately Texas Ammo. So going into that, what is on our horizon? And I'll tell you what's on the horizon with the 22 Creedmoor. And there'll be some videos below that you can also check out. We've got new releases that currently, again, exclusive to Horizon and exclusive to Texas Ammo until, kind of in October, once we get these things all launched up. We've got a new 69 grain VT designed specifically for the 22 Creedmoor and predator hunting that does some things that the 62 doesn't do in the 22 Creed. Awesome ammunition. And we've also got what I am personally really loving is we've got a 69 grain CX, so it's solid copper running over 3,600 out of factory ammo, and what I will be personally taking on my Coues deer in Arizona this year. Can't wait. Guys, appreciate you listening to this episode of On the Horizon podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe. Listen to us on your favorite platforms. Till next time, we'll catch you later.